Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast, brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. We're talking Xfinity Series, Atlanta, on a hot Friday night, super speedway racing, plate racing, pack racing, drafting racing, whatever you want to call it. It's volatile. There's going to be wrecks. I won't be long. I'll get you out of here quickly because you know what to do. You know how this works. Stack in the back. Now, in the Xfinity Series, salaries are a little bit tighter, and we don't often end up with the 6 top scorers. We do for the most part, but we do tend to see expensive drivers tend to score more, and the drivers with longer odds not necessarily scoring boatloads of points like we see in the Cup Series, where the field is very even, the equipment is very equal, and we see, basically pure stack in the back. But for the most part, we don't need to spend too much time on this. You know how it goes. But we will look at the most recent Atlanta Super Speedway optimal lineups to give you a general idea of what the winning strategy is. We'll look at some of the stats. I'm not going to sit here and waste your time with, is Atlanta a super speedway? It is. End of story. Moving on. But before we move on, RaceForThePrize.com, that's where you can get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheets. I'm only going to show you a little bit of the data, but you want to get all that data for the month of July, $24, and I'll throw in Atlanta and Lime Rock for this weekend, or you can just buy this weekend for $10. Let's start with, before we jump into driver-specific stats, and if you're looking right here, what we have, I have them sorted at the moment as who's got the highest top 10 percentage in the most recent Super Speedway, so there's much more data in the spreadsheet for this video. We're just looking at 2022 onward stats. And for that statistic, Harris Burton, 67% top 10 rate, but again, that's only 3 races. Whereas you look at a guy like Sheldon Creed, man, Sheldon Creed is Ricky Stenhouse. Isn't Sheldon Creed Ricky Stenhouse? All kinds of talent, can really race a car, but really can wreck a car. And so then we go to racetracks where, oh yeah, this is where everyone wrecks. He doesn't wreck. Now, Stenhouse still wrecks, but Stenhouse has good super speedway numbers. Creed, 55%, 30% top 5 rate. Obviously, Austin Hill, killing it. Ryan Sieg, at his home track, has run well. Was in the mix to win in the spring again at Atlanta, and got into a mess at the end. Parker Retzlaff has been strong. Now, you're going to have to downgrade him a little bit because he's in Johnny Davis equipment and not Jordan Anderson equipment. And we know the Jordan Anderson cars and trucks have always been good super speedway vehicles. Allgaier, Alfredo, not really a surprise. Alfredo, for whatever you want to say, for or against him, he does appear to be a very cerebral driver. Old Tony Cheese, Fast Pasta, makes no sense. Slow Cheese, Slow Tony, it's not that slow. Ant Alf, he's cerebral. Reminds me a lot of Parker Kligerman. Matty D, we know you got that Truck Series Talladega win a couple years ago. He's always been a pretty solid super speedway guy in a couple series. Anyway, I said I was going to go into optimals. Let's go into optimals, and we'll just look at Atlanta. But if you have access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet at RaceForThePrize.com, you can look at everything Daytona to Talladega. We'll just look. What we're really looking for is a pattern. What is the general construction and lineup build? Slightly different in the Xfinity Series, especially at Atlanta. We're going to go with a lap leader, and then we're going to really try to stuff in top finishes and place differential. As I mentioned on the podcast before, you've got 3 scoring buckets. You've got your hog points or dominator points, where all drivers can score points, but we know in reality that there's only a select few that really are going to put points into that bucket. So we're not going to see the $5,000, $6,000 drivers score fast laps and lap-led points to a significant degree. That being said, we will get 2 or 3 fast lap points possibly from some of the cheaper drivers. But at the end of the day, you will often see that if we combine fast laps and laps led for those hog or dominator points, there's going to be one driver that significantly paces the field and stuffs that bucket. And we're going to need to pick the one driver that's throwing the coins in that bucket. Now, our other 2 buckets are finishing position and place differential. Place differential bucket is mainly going to be given to or will concentrate around the driver starting further toward the back. They can really fill those buckets to the top. End of the day, they end up with a lot of points. The closer you start to the front, the smaller your bucket is, and it really limits your upside. When it comes to upside and adding all these buckets up, 50 points is about where we want to go. So when you envision a driver throwing coins into the fast lap sled hog bucket and say, well, I can't put very many points in there. Can't score very many points in that bucket. All right, well, what about your other two buckets? Can we add those together and get you to 50? Well, if they're starting towards the back, we'll say, all right, that place differential bucket, you can really fill that thing up. You can get 20 coins in there. Now, can you get 20, 30 more coins in your finishing position bucket? And that's where you're going to be able to decide which guys in the back you can trust, which guys you can't, and which guys starting closer to the front you can trust and which you cannot when it comes down to the finishing position bucket. Like, for example, Eric Almirola, we all know that he is very capable of a top 5 in Xfinity Series and top tier equipment. So that finishing position bucket, he can really load that up. But then the question is, all right, can he get enough in the place differential bucket? And in the spring Atlanta race, the answer was yes. He was able to get 13 coins into that. That put him at 55. That gets him over the hump. Salary's tough, but like I said before, salary's going to be a lot tighter in the Xfinity Series. Always have. Usually a little bit easier at Daytona, which can be more volatile. Sometimes Talladega. Atlanta's probably the tightest of all. So you may, like you can see here, the top lineup couldn't afford Nick Sanchez at 8,100. Sanchez, 39.10, gets him to 53 when he add in a little bit of those scraped fast laps, gets over the 50-point hump, but just does not quite fit into that optimal, actually. Yeah, he does. Should be Sanchez over Smith. Come on, optimizer. How did the optimizer mess that up? Who cares? Either way, yeah, he did finish. All 6 did make it into the thing. So that is that. Anyway, that's what you're doing when you target drivers. Here are, it's a perfect example. Austin Hill does what Austin Hill does at Atlanta. Fills fast laps, lead bucket, fills finishing position bucket. Well, he's locked out of the place differential bucket because he's starting up front, but Austin Hill is a character, a cat, that we know, yeah, well, he's not got access to 2 scoring buckets, but those 2 buckets he can max out. And he does max it out, and he does it quite often, no problem there. There's your 1 lap leader, and then the rest of your lineup is place differential. Let's fix this. Maybe I put the actual winning lineup in there. That could be possibly what I was thinking. Maybe someone built it with Smith instead of Sanchez. Who knows? Anyway, no, I got the lineup right over here. I just highlighted wrong. It might have been actually a legacy highlight, an artifact from a previous shoot. That's what I think it was. Yeah, that's what it was. These bold and italicized things were from a copy and paste thing. So, yeah, all the lines are up here. Come on now. Sorry to disparage you, optimizer. Why didn't I trust you? Anyway, there it is. Place differential. And when we look at it, we got guys who, Benedetto, imagine you're going into the race. You think, can I get 50 points out of him? And the answer was, yeah, if he finishes 12th, could you see Benedetto? It's right on the fringe of where he could get to. But he started 30th, gets the 12th, that gets him 31. And then you throw in 18 place differential. There it is. He's right there at the cut line. About as high as it can get. Now, I'm not going to break down the specific races, but you know what happens. You look at a guy like Benedetto, you look at a guy like Honeyman. What did they do? They just ran around until you get a little later in stage 3. Then they start pushing it. Everyone starts pushing it. People start wrecking. They didn't wreck. They got there within striking distance on the last restart, and they grabbed 4 or 5 more spots. And that led to Honeyman and Cope finishing 8th, Benedetto finishing 12th. One thing I want to know about Honeyman, I often am concerned about Derek Cope, Daytona 500 winner Derek Cope. Put some respect on the name. The equipment being okay. Well, the equipment is actually fine. The equipment that Cope purchased were chassis from Young Motorsports from last season, which Honeyman ran for. and the engines are ECR. And actually, before that, and I tweeted this out, those young Xfinity chassis were Brandon built. And you might remember Brandon Brown was actually pretty decent at the super speedways, won a Talladega race once upon a time and ruined his career. Remember? Let's go, Brandon. Remember that whole thing? Let's go, Leland. How about that? Well, it's not ruined his career either, but boy, isn't that one of the biggest ironies ever? The best day of Brandon Brown's life was the worst day of Brandon Brown's life. You can't really make this stuff up. We haven't heard from him. It's tough, man. So tough. Anyway, there's your optimal lineup. We're chasing place differential. We're taking a lap leader. Let's look at 2024 fall race. Place differential. We got a lap leader in AJ. Not the biggest score, but it is there. Place differential with Corey Heim. It's not Austin Hill's day, but it is his day. He ends up winning the race because that's just what Austin Hill does in his home state. Smith, kind of breaking the trend here. Smith, 12 place differential, not breaking the trend. The only one that really stands out is, oh, I can't believe it. It's, well, A, Austin Hill wasn't in the optimal lineup, but he did win the race. B, but again, like we have seen AJ Allmendinger run really well at super speedways. We know what colleague is capable at super speedways. AJ, Chastain, Haley, so it's not too much of a surprise to see it be an AJ day. And the bigger surprise here is Chandler Smith, but is it really? Again, if it's an AJ day and it's a colleague day, then it's a Chandler Smith day. Well, actually, Chandler was with JGR at this point, wasn't he? I don't know. I'm mixing it up in my head so much. He's been all over the place. Yeah, he was JGR last year. There's old Honeyman, Sugar Man. But Rodriguez for it. Atlanta, we go back. Here we go. Hey, how about those RCR cars at Atlanta? Jesse Love, big lap leader, and then we got place differential, colored car. Survive and thrive. Jordan Anderson car. No big surprises there. I guess maybe the bigger surprise is, well, Austin Hill didn't lead a bunch of laps. They freaking won again. So, do you have to play Austin Hill this week? Not necessarily. He's probably going to win, but we don't have a 100% guarantee he's going to lead the most laps. 2023 fall race. Is it leader in PD? There's your lap leader, Justin Haley, colleague car. Kyle Sieg, big time place differential. You know the routine there. Daniel Hemrick, colleague car. Get you just enough place differential. Stacks the finishing position bucket up just enough. And is affordable. Gets you to that 50-point mark. And you get a driver to the 50-point mark. If you got a guy and you're projecting him to score 45 and you really squirm and try to stretch, and no matter what you see or do or believe, you just can't envision or imagine, you can't get the numbers to hit 50 fantasy points, and that's probably not your guy, regardless of price. Brett Moffitt, 16 PD. Scrape me some fast. Get you almost to that top 10 range. It's over 50. Parker Kligerman, just get you over 50. Now, this one would have been harder to predict because Parker really got there by scraping some fast laps, which it's tough to go into a projection and give a guy 6 fast lap points if he's not really, I mean, like even the leaders, right? You can't give them a bunch of fast laps because they're not running fast. So, yeah, it's tricky to predict guys that are going to be running the fastest laps. And on average, it's going to be the guys running kind of that right behind the leader, not quite directly behind the leader, but in that mix, to have fast cars, to have just enough of a drafting advantage. But man, you're really getting deep in the weeds if you're going to try to predict it. That Parker Kligerman is going to be running in 7th place for a majority of this race, and aerodynamically, that should lead to, by my calculations, around 6 fast lap points. Carry the 2, and then use the cosine. Yeah, come on now. And then you end up with Kaz Garala, 17 place differential. So PD, just enough PD, not the biggest stretches. Now, maybe you don't want to get hung up on how much place differential I want. I think your better bet is to focus on, yeah, you want to be cognizant of place differential, but more sound strategy is, can this guy get to 50, around 50? And then maybe you open the door for some of the drivers that are a little bit more inexpensive. 6,800, you can say, all right, I can spare a few bucks, knowing that more than likely the perfect lineup, or more than likely the top 6 fantasy scores are not going to be in the optimal lineup, and maybe I can get a little wiggle room down here. 2023 spring, and then we'll look over some specific stats. Hey, Austin Hill, how about that? And then we got place differential. Kligerman, Z. Alfredo, Daniel Hemrick, Colleague, Brennan Poole, Brett Moffitt popping up again, only gets to 45, does get a really good finish. I think that was with, what's Burton's team? The Austin Wayne self / Kevin Sawinski / the team. And Riley Herbst, kind of a low output here. Not a lot of movement in this race. I would guess that we didn't really get a lot of cautions at the end. And let's see. You can see it over here. We do get a caution on lap 156. But really, if you go from lap 124 to the end of the race, you got 1 caution. So, yeah, not a lot of opportunities for a lot of chaos and movement in that race. So, let's go over the general stats. Just look at the drivers that we like. Super Speedway, research. Don't want to get too deep into it because you, again, know the drill. After qualifying, you're going to stack in the back. Now, you're not going to necessarily stack in the back. You're going to look for drivers that can maximize the place differential bucket and the finishing position bucket, get you to 50 fantasy points. So you don't really have to just play all the guys in the back. This is not Daytona. I would be a little bit more methodical in your picking, and you're really going to hone in on the back half of the field because they have the biggest place differential bucket. They can throw more coins in there and add up points. But when you're looking at them specifically, you're asking, can they get 50 fantasy points? If they get to the top 10, how many points are they going to get there? And then if they can get 10 more place differential, are they at 50? So we have it sorted by top 10 percentage. Let's sort it by salaries, just because that'll give us some popular names to look at. Again, you want access to all the tabs on the spreadsheet. Go to racefortheprize.com, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, $24. Support the fam, and I'll support you, giving you access to Chicago, Sonoma, Dover, Indianapolis in the RFP truck race. If you haven't purchased before already, and you buy the July package, I'll throw in this week's Atlanta. I'll throw in this week's Lemrock. Look at your price. There's Austin Hill's stats. When I look at those numbers, my initial assumption is I messed the sheet up. I broke the sheet again. What's wrong? And then I go and I verify the data, and I'm like, no, sheet's fine. She's always fine. This dude's insane. All he does is win at Atlanta. That is remarkable. 5 wins in the last 6 Atlanta races. Wrap your head around that. And it's not like it's Kevin Harvick at old Atlanta, a place where he had a car that dominated, he had a skill set that dominated, and that separated him. Because although Hill does have those both, it's a freaking super speedway. No one wins 5 of the last 6 at a super speedway. No one. And even if you look at the last 7, he's got a 2nd place in there. What are we doing? How is this possible? Even though in a couple of those, he hasn't even been off on DFS. So again, I had to double check because it's just, one, any racetrack in general. You see all those ones like, I messed my sheet up. Oh, he didn't. And then you say, well, it's a super speedway. There's no way that's right. It's right. It's right. And then if you look even closer, Jesse Love, very solid, should have won one of these Atlanta races last year. RCR, I don't know what they have done. I don't know what's in the witch's brew, what kind of potion they have concocted, but they have dialed something up, and you don't mess with Nick Childress in the ATL. Peach City, the Peach State, is for Austin Hill. It's all about love. It's all about Austin. I don't got anything else there. Eric Almirola is fine. I don't really necessarily need to roster him knowing that I think this guy's going to cruise. But if Almirola gives me 10 place differential points, I can see him in the top 3. That gets you to 50. Same thing for Justin Allgaier. When we're looking at these drivers down through here, I'm just looking for place differential in the double digits. That's going to be my first check mark because they're all capable of top 3, and we're operating under the assumption that it's going to be an RCR day. They're going to be your lap leader. It could be different based on qualifying. If Hill and Love qualified out of the field, we're not going to have a practice, but just heading in, we're going to go under or operate under the assumption that it's RCR until we've been proven otherwise. So then the rest of these drivers, all capable of top 3s, from even Zilich, who nearly won a super speedway recently. Simon Mayer, I believe he does have it. Does he have a super speedway win? Not of late. I thought he had one back in the past. Anyway, so Mayer's going to be there. And, Jason Trinchier was a former colleague, crew chief, colleague good, plate racing cars. So you like that aspect. Sheldon Creed, as I mentioned earlier, really good at the super speedways, much to my chagrin. He's Stenhouse, baby, Quapple. Don't count out a junior motorsport car at the super speedway. Sieg has been exceptional. Sieg's good, really good. I like Matt Noyce as a crew chief. I think that was a steal for them. Sieg always does a really good job about bringing on some pretty worthwhile crew chiefs, but he's also changed around a lot too as well. Not a lot of value there. Again, with these guys, who's starting furthest to the back, and that's really going to determine where they will be. If you really want to look into the stats, then if let's say all things being equal, then you gotta go with Creed, you gotta go with Allgaier. I believe you can bump up Eckes. We just don't have a large sample size in the Xfinity series. It's a colored car. You never bet against Conzilla. Sam Mayer, as I mentioned, with Trinchier. But I think Creed and Allgaier are kind of two of my favorites, if all things being equal in terms of starting position. And then as we go down here, we are going to try to look for a little bit more statistical consistency. Burton, Sawinski, like I mentioned before, that was that Moffitt car that got some solid optimal runs. He's definitely in play. Daniel Dye in a colored car, definitely in play. Finished 7th at Atlanta back in February. William Sawalich, you got a JGR car, why not? Jeb Burton, it's a Jordan Anderson car. We know these are strong horses for courses, as the golf DFS dudes say. Burton, no problem with that, as long as he doesn't start too close to the front. Josh Williams, it's a colored car at the end of the day, as long as he doesn't start too close to the front. And he's got to start a little bit deeper because we know we're not going to get as many finishing position points out of him, so we need more place differential. You just run the calculation once you see the starting grid, and you'll know what to do there. Parker, I got down him a little bit this year because it is not a Jordan Anderson car, but I wouldn't completely write him off. It's just going to be a matter of where he's starting. Tony, it's a matter of where he's starting. If he is starting in the top 20, I'm just not interested. But if qualifying doesn't go well, I don't know why you qualify poorly. But if you qualify poorly, definitely on board. I don't expect you to do that. I could see DiBenedetto not qualifying very well. So I see a more likely outcome of getting DiBenedetto or even Jeremy Clements or Brendan Poole in my lineups. Just cheaper options are going to get you enough finishing position points and enough place differential. This is in that area where I mentioned earlier where, all right, we probably aren't going to get DFS score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in our lineup. We might need 1, 2, 3, 4, 7th most fantasy points, and then the 9th most fantasy points. And then when we talk about the driver that scores the 7th most and 9th most, that might be around 45 fantasy points. And that's where we are okay, not maximizing points because we get a little bit of savings, and that would be the likes of Di Benedetto and Brennan Poole, or even a Kyle Sieg. Hey, it's his home course too. Give him some respect. Yeah, I mean, if it's Ryan's home course, home track, then it is for Kyle as well. And I mean, you know the story of these guys in the back. I don't really want to play them if there is a reason for a bunch of. I mean, actually, I'll say it again, as I always say it. Is it leg or leggy? Junior says leggy. The female broadcasters say leg. I don't know. I've heard it every which way. But it's a Jordan Anderson car. Why not? $4,500. She's going to open your lineups up a lot. We'll see. And I do not expect Cat Leg to qualify well. And if she does not qualify well, I just goes out there, takes it easy, then she's going to start in the back. She gives you max savings. She just avoids the wrecks. Big if, big ask. But if she does so, then you're good to go. And then the rest from the back, it's just a matter of do they not wreck. Their equipment's all okay. We've seen the actual Gase Motorsports cars get into optimal lineups of late and be halfway competitive. Gosselin, old man Steve Addison's still out there pulling the clipboard out. They can get it done if there's enough chaos. Now, if there's not quite a lot of chaos, which sometimes could happen at Atlanta, I don't really need McLaughlin or Maggio. But the equipment's not terrible in this back. And the equipment amongst these guys at Super Speedways, there's not that much difference. As I mentioned, that Derek Cope rides a legit, real deal ride. ECR engine. Brandon built. Brandon Brown. Young Motorsports chassis. It's had pretty good results this season. Finished 8th at Atlanta in the spring. Honeyman knows what he's doing out there. Not a bad little Super Speedway racer. I mean, this car finished, I think, 22nd at Mexico a couple weeks ago with a part-time driver. So don't count it out. You do get to a little bit better equipment up here, but it's not that much. Not much that's going to really matter too much in Super Speedway. At the end of the day, when I'm looking back here, I really am just trying to maximize place differential. That'll do it for the Fantasy NASCAR podcast, racefortheprize.com. Like, subscribe, share the videos. You can always just give us a tip. Send a little money, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, just because you're a nice, caring, kind human being. And so we will end with this nice Haitian Creole phrase, which means have a safe trip. Bon woo!